I looked today, and we're 0.6 of a degree above average for September, and it's going to be above normal today. So we have erased all that cool air from the beginning of the month, and the reason is because it was really cool at the beginning of the month when the averages were higher, and now we're above average when the averages are lower. So it kind of flipped the script there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. In fact, we haven't had a below average day since the 16th of the month. So it's been quite the reversal there. Are you getting reports of stink bugs yet?
I got a report from Tim Buckley, meteorologist, today in Greensboro that said there were about 6 in my home that I noticed. So yeah, they're alive and they're flying and they're crawling and they're waking up, I guess. Or what's the deal? Are they awoken? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, well, the thing, and just from like you said, firsthand experience, usually when they start to get more active and try to get in your house is when we have these cool nights and warm days, because I think those cool nights kind of trigger them. And so I'll be interested to see, like you said, the end of this week, we're going to have like the perfect setup for stink bugs, which are cold mornings and warm sunny afternoons. And what they'll do, Tim, is they like the south side of your house. That faces the sun. They'll climb up on the side of your house. Yeah. And what they do is they try to get in through the cracks of the windows and doors and get into your house before nightfall so that they can stay warm. So it's kind of like you said, they've been triggered to say, hey, time to seek shelter inside. They know winter's coming.
I notice a lot of them. I notice in a similar way, maybe not this week, but a couple weeks ago, a lot of ladybugs as well.
Yep. The same thing. Those things will swarm, and then there's another bug that sometimes people think is a stink bug. It looks like it's a kudzu bug, which is another invasive species. They will do the same thing. And I always do my stink bug forecast for the week, Tim. So Jeb, could we show it real quick? Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's low right now, but as you mentioned, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to go a little more medium, because I think those cold mornings and the warm sunny afternoons might start triggering more of them. So if you have pets, they seem to find these quicker than we do. So if you have cats or dogs, they tend to find these things out. And you got to be careful, because the reason they're called stink bugs, if you smash these things, you'll find out real quickly why they're called stink bugs.
Yeah, for sure. And so will the cats, and that's a good way to know why. There'll be a weather impact alert for stink bugs on Friday and Saturday this week.
Oh, won't our bosses love that? Thanks again,
good
Tim.
Stuff.
I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm really looking forward to the weather.
Yeah, I am too. This is why I love this time of year. October is the best month of the year, if you ask me, here in the Carolinas. Stick around, everybody. Yes. More weather, I should say, more WCNC Plus coming up right after the break.
Good evening, folks. Thanks so much for joining us here for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We'll be together for the next couple of hours. And of course, a big topic we'll be following throughout our portion here of Live Impact and in our newscast to come tonight at 11 here on WCNC Plus is the impending government shutdown. As it stands, we're about 5 hours away from the federal government shutting down if Congress does not come to an agreement on a spending plan. Recapping how we got to this point, at this hour, we're seeing a Republican plan that is on the table. It would temporarily fund the federal government just for a period of several weeks, and then Democrats at this point holding out. They say they want some concessions here, saying that they weren't negotiated with to begin with for the Republican plan, and particularly we see the Democrats speaking on their desires to see affordable health care being placed in some sort of measure that would be passed. So essentially a stalemate. Yesterday, we had congressional leaders meeting with the president in order to come to an agreement or kind of make some headway, but seemingly all parties coming out of that meeting late yesterday afternoon pessimistic. In fact, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, said that he seemed like we were likely to see a shutdown tonight. Deadline, of course, as we mentioned, 12:01 Wednesday. So that's early in the morning. Essentially midnight is when this deal needs to be done. And all sorts of folks are watching very intently to see what plays out. In fact, just within the last several minutes, we are seeing reporting that a group of top CEOs has sent a letter urging the Congress men and women to do what they need to do to avoid a federal shutdown, saying that it would create uncertainty, it would disrupt critical services and harm American businesses, workers, and families. The board of this particular business roundtable that sent that letter to Congress tonight, including Apple CEO Tim Cook, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, General Motors CEO Marty Barra, and Walmart CEO Doug McMillon. In the Carolinas, of course, there could be various impacts, and one of the ones that we wanted to talk about tonight, the potential impacts to national parks. Of course, a lot would be up in the air, but considering the fact that tourism is largely driven in Western North Carolina by the outdoor scene, if you will, this is something that is certainly catching the ear of folks in that area. In fact, we're joining now with Jesse Pope, who's the president and CEO of the Grandfather Mountain Stewardship Foundation. Jesse, thanks so much for joining us here tonight on Live Impact.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine y'all over at Grandfather Mountain are watching the potential impacts of this federal shutdown. Of course, worth noting that y'all are your own nonprofit entity. Grandfather Mountain State Park is obviously, as the name alludes to, a state park, but really the outdoor scene is interwoven very intimately with the national park system there in Western North Carolina. What are y'all potentially preparing for with a government shutdown?
Well, obviously, the Blue Ridge Parkway is very important to travel and tourism in Western North Carolina. At Grandfather Mountain, the nearest entrance to the park from where we are sees about 2 million vehicles passing by the Grandfather Mountain on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So they're a very important neighbor to us, certainly. They bring a lot of visitors to our park and really to all the gateway communities in Western North Carolina. Certainly having a government shutdown as fall color is literally upon us here in October. The next 2 or 3 weeks, we expect to see tens of thousands of visitors in our community coming to visit. So would be a big negative impact with a government shutdown and the potential closing of the Blue Ridge Parkway around Grandfather Mountain in Western North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, we just literally came off, several days of coverage of the 1-year anniversary of Helene. A lot of the messaging up from the high country was, y'all saying we're open for business. We've done a lot of hard work to get things largely restored so that visitors can come and enjoy. A lot of businesses are hoping for people to come and spend money up there. Have you been in contact at all with, Congress people, leaders of various sorts to kind of see, hey, how could this possibly impact us? What could close? What are y'all, I guess, talking about and trying to do as far as the information gathering aspect of this?
Sure. And to your point, we've been advocating all summer for keeping the Blue Ridge Parkway open and getting the Blue Ridge Parkway open. Obviously, there's a lot of various moving parts with impacts from Hurricane Helene. There's also been ongoing maintenance projects related to the Great American Outdoors Act. And so there's been several moving parts, but we were all very hopeful for a vibrant fall color and also for a lot of visitors coming to our area. So the impacts of the Blue Ridge Parkway being closed, certainly a challenge here. We have not heard any real indications as to whether what a shutdown is going to look like on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's been handled in several different ways. Sometimes the gates are open, sometimes the gates are closed, and there's not really an indication yet what will happen after midnight tonight if a deal's not reached. And we have certainly been calling our representatives, our federal legislators, to let them know what those impacts would be on our business and on visitation here in Avery and Watauga counties around Grandfather Mountain. Certainly will have negative impacts to visitation for sure. And those conversations, they certainly are, everyone seems to be sympathetic to what Western North Carolina has been through. And I think nobody really wants to have a negative impact. We have not really heard clear indications one way or another. Of course, those conversations are still happening in Washington, D.C. that we're obviously not privy to. But, we're watching it closely. It will have impacts on us, and we'll have to react accordingly. We'll be following it closely tonight. We'll be looking for any indications as to how the Blue Ridge Parkway will be reacting to the closure as well, which likely will come from the Department of the Interior. And, obviously political decisions will drive how we react, how the Blue Ridge Parkway reacts to the closure.
What is the sentiment tonight, amongst your colleagues and yourself, and how you're feeling, just knowing all that y'all have been through over the last year, and now, potentially another obstacle here? I mean, it has to be frustrating. There's some heartbreak with it for sure. Losing last October and July are our two busiest attendance months of the year. And as a nonprofit organization, we really receive our funding based on people coming to see us. The visitors that come to our park are who pay the bills and pay the staff. And so we had a huge impact last year. Hurricane Helene, just from business loss, we had about a $3.2 million business loss last year. And we were really hopeful this fall would be a turning point for us to turn the corner. Unfortunately, looks like we're going to have some more impacts we'll have to navigate. And, we'll be making plans to help our visitors understand that you can still get to Grandfather Mountain. Grandfather Mountain is open for business, and there's other ways, of course, to get here. But not having the Blue Ridge Parkway will impact travel. It'll increase to the congestion in Western North Carolina on a variety of roads, certainly. But, we still want people to come. We need the visitors. So, maybe the most important message that I would love for everyone to hear is please still come. Even if the parkway is closed, these businesses in Western North Carolina still need you to come visit and support us. We're all struggling. Business has not recovered post-Helene, even in our area. Grandfather Mountain, we're down about 17% this year in visitation. So we would love for folks to come visit us in Western North Carolina, despite the shutdown. I guess on that note, is there any messaging that you'd like to share with folks as far as how they can best support you? Obviously, you mentioned the visiting aspect. Are there any sort of funds that people can donate to as well, or, just any other ways that people can help out if by chance they can't visit in the next couple of weeks?
Absolutely. You can make a charitable donation to the park. We would certainly appreciate that. Would be a big help for us. Also consider membership to Grandfather Mountain. If you can't come now, think about buying a Bridge Club membership, which gets you year-round access to the park. Memberships are another way that we can sustain the park. So thank you for that opportunity to share that.
I got to say, one of my favorite regular press releases that we get is from Grandfather Mountain, and it's the fall color report. And I noticed that within recent days, y'all started putting out some of your first color reports. And I think today's, or the most recent one, was from the Forrest Gump curve. And I think it sets the table so marvelously for what folks can expect when they go up to the high country and specifically to your neck of the woods. I mean, what is it looking like as far as fall color over at Grandfather Mountain?
I wish you could see behind me right now. It's a little dark, but the colors are popping outside my window. I'm at my house right now, and colors are starting to pop. Grandfather is beautiful right now. The next couple of weeks up there are going to be great, and we're pretty hopeful for a nice fall color. Starting to have some cooler nights, and the weather is really cooperating. We dodged the hurricane bullet this last week, so we're still hopeful for a really nice fall color up here. So stay tuned. The next couple of weeks are going to be really gorgeous. You'll see those magazine quality shots, and you can come take your own picture, because it is absolutely stunning when you come to the park and see it at the peak of fall color.
Yeah, I mean, I was up there last week along with a lot of my other colleagues, including my co-anchor Colin Mayfield and Brad Panovich, and I think all of us enjoyed our time up in the high country, just kind of getting a little bit of a taste of fall, and it got us really excited, I think, for the season ahead. So I hope it is a successful season for y'all. Is there anything that you'd like to leave our viewers with before we wrap things up, either on the topic of the government shutdown or anything Helene related, or just anything in general that you'd like to share?
I just appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all tonight, and thank you for sharing Brad with us too on our Grandfather Presents last week. It was a great event where we really looked at what we learned from Hurricane Helene. There's a lot of great lessons and a lot of silver linings, I think. And Grandfather Mountain is an excellent place to visit. Both Grandfather Mountain State Park, the attraction at Grandfather Mountain Stewardship Foundation's park, two wonderful parks. The Blue Ridge Parkway, of course, runs around the edge of the mountain. And as most visitors don't really see property boundaries, they just come to Grandfather Mountain, and we love that. That's great. We love our friends on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Certainly my heart goes out to all the staff there, and just everything that they're navigating with the government shutdown too. But great place to visit. We hope folks will come and just enjoy Grandfather Mountain, enjoy it for what it is, and especially this time of year, this wonderful season we're moving into.
Yeah, I mean, I love it for the scenery and the fall feels, but I got to say, particularly, it can be pretty heavy to be on a phone scroll right now, if you know what I mean. So sometimes it helps to get to the mountains, folks. So I'll just say that.
Absolutely, and it's amazing running a nature park. You never expect to be on an interview talking about government shutdowns, but it affects everything. It affects parks. It affects all the things. So, thanks for the opportunity to talk about it. And let's get outside and enjoy the natural beauty and the natural world, and set the phone aside for a few minutes every day at least.
Yeah, well said. Well, we'll love to have you back anytime you'd like to join us. Jesse Pope, President and CEO of Grandfather Mountain Stewardship Foundation. Appreciate your time and joining us here on Live Impact.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care. Of course, folks, as we've mentioned, now we're down to probably less than 5 hours at this point before a potential shutdown. We should mention we've been seeing a lot of back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. Essentially, I mean, to boil it down, it's a lot of finger pointing in the sense of the group saying, hey, we have a plan or we have a desire. It's the other group that's not making it happen. So we heard earlier from Democratic leaders, particularly from the Senate, who were speaking here on Live Impact News in our 3 o'clock hour. It looks like we have Republicans speaking as we speak. So let's listen in to hear what their side of the story is tonight.
Democrats out there who will recognize it needs to be reformed and are willing to work with us. I can't take the temperature for the House, but obviously there are a lot of our colleagues in both the House and Senate who recognize that COVID no longer exists. This program, if we did what the Democrats want to do, which is to extend it permanently, is a $365 billion score. So anything that's going to be done is going to have to be done with significant reforms. And but like I said, we are willing to have that conversation.
Leader, on these 3 Democrats, at least 3 who voted in favor of the bill tonight, is that a result of some of your conversations? And when you have these conversations with the other side, Are you talking to them about trying to help cover some of these subsidies or defray the cost of Obamacare?
There are conversations going on a regular basis with which I'm familiar, and some of which I'm a party to. But we have a number of our colleagues who are being approached by their Democrat colleagues who are interested in getting out of this pickle that their leader has put them in. This is an unfortunate circumstance, and the only real victim here is the American people. This is so unnecessary and uncalled for. So hopefully they'll come to soon.
Did those talks change things from the vote a week and a half ago to the vote today?
I think that there is a recognition that the strategy that the Democrat leadership is employing here is the wrong one, which is, I think, what's changed the vote between then and now. But we'll see where it goes. I mean, we're going to have some more votes, and we'll see where the Democrats come down. I hope we have enough that change their minds that we can get this government open and responsive to the American people.
Are you open to changing the bill?
We need to keep the government open. We can talk about whatever else they want to talk about after that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, we'll keep you updated if we hear anything more from either side, Republican or Democrat. I do believe Democrats are going to be making addresses throughout the evening as we get closer to potential shutdown. We're now 4 hours, 39 minutes, and 39 seconds away from that shutdown happening. We're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact News. We'll be back in 2 minutes, potentially with more on the shutdown and the other side. But let's go ahead and take that break, and we'll regroup and see what we got in the feeds when we return. Welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Of course, a lot of topics to get to this evening, but the main one, as the urgency is kind of building here that we're seeing, of course, is big topic, the government shutdown that is looming at midnight. We're about 4 hours and 37 minutes away from that shutdown happening if lawmakers cannot come to a deal. We heard in our last block of news, interesting perspective from folks in Western North Carolina, concerns that this, if their shutdown happens, could hinder any sort of tourism bounce back in a crucial season for the high country, which is fall, when you start to get some cooler feels and the leaves starting to change and a lot more folks visiting. Blue Ridge Parkway, of note, is under the National Park Service, and while we don't specifically know how a government shutdown would impact the Blue Ridge Parkway specifically, there is the potential that there could be some closures there as well as at other national parks in the high country. So Something that we'll watch. As we mentioned, we've got various folks speaking on either side of the issue. So we just heard from Republicans a few moments ago. We're going to get to the Democratic perspective. Looks like we've got a representative from Delaware speaking at this moment. Let's listen in.
And again, Republicans in Congress will do the bidding of Donald Trump. And we are here because of an unholy alliance between congressional Republicans, Donald Trump, and the billionaires who fueled their campaigns and who facilitated their absolute abuse of power. Now, this past July, Republicans in Congress, over the opposition of every single Democrat, passed a massive tax break for billionaires in an effort to pay off their supporters. The billionaires said, you give us these tax breaks, we'll fund your campaigns, and we'll allow you to destroy our democracy. And in order to just partially pay for it, congressional Republicans and Donald Trump raided the health care of the American people. They created a health care crisis. They inserted a ticking time bomb into the center of the American healthcare system. A ticking time bomb that, as it goes off, will result in the largest cut to Medicaid in American history and skyrocketing costs for Americans who rely on the Affordable Care Act, putting those plans out of reach. And what happens when millions of Americans lose their health coverage? Well, often they go without care. In many cases, people will die. But people who don't have coverage, they don't never get care. They just get care when they're sicker, and the care is more expensive. And because it is uncovered, the hospitals pass the cost on to everyone else. And when you remove $1 trillion from the American healthcare system, hospitals, federally qualified health centers that are already cash-strapped, particularly in urban and rural communities, they're forced to close, leaving all of the communities that rely on them for care having to drive longer, having to take more time off work, having to wait longer to get the care that they need. We are already starting to live under Trump care. Millions of Americans losing coverage, tens of thousands losing their lives, and everyone else having to pay more and wait longer to get the care that they need. The bomb is going off in the middle of the American healthcare system right now. And that is why Congress cannot afford to wait to address this healthcare cost crisis. It's why House Democrats and Senate Democrats are holding the line in saying, we will work with Republicans to keep this government open, to guarantee that the rule of law prevails, and to address this healthcare crisis. But Republicans, in their shameful and cowardly actions, are nowhere to be seen here. It is shameful. It is shameful. But we also know it's intentional. Because we know that the fuel of Trumpism is the same thing that has fueled authoritarianism across the world. And that is when people are hungry and out of a job, when they're struggling, when they're sick, when they're desperate. That is what fuels Donald Trump. That is what fuels the MAGA movement. And so we are here because lives are on the line. We are here because we want to save and protect health care. And we are here because we recognize that if we do not solve this healthcare crisis, it feeds right into Donald Trump's hand. It helps him consolidate power. It helps him continue to fearmonger and scapegoat. And we are here to provide a different future. A future where every single person can get the care that they need. A future where everyone can take care of themselves and their family without having to break the bank. A future where every single working person is able to live and thrive in America. That is the future we will build together. That is the future we fight for. And whether you voted for us in the last election or you didn't, we are here for you, and you are welcome to our cause. Thank you all very much.
All right, folks, there you see some dialogue tonight from the Democrat perspective regarding the potential government shutdown. As expected, we have even more leadership within Congress speaking. Looks like we've got Chuck Schumer now. So let's listen in to hear what he has to say.
Sit down and negotiate with Democrats to come to a bill that both parties can support. They didn't do that in the past. Their bill, they call it clean, we call it totally partisan. There was no input from Democrats. Not a single line in their bill had input from Democrats. They never consulted us. Thune didn't consult me. Johnson didn't consult Hakeem. And the bottom line is that we had a partisan bill. You don't pass partisan bills, CR. When I was majority leader, we passed 13 of these bills, not one shutdown. You want to know why? It's because we negotiated with them. They didn't. And that's why they have failed now twice. Now, why do we care so much about them negotiating with us? It's not a point of pride. It's because Americans are hurting with higher costs throughout the country. Some of it's tariffs, some of it's energy costs, some of its food costs, but one of the main reasons, and the one with the most immediate impact on raising Americans' costs, is skyrocketing costs of health care, all done by the Republicans. We have now learned that the premiums for those on ACA, 24 million people, that's a huge number, will go up 114%. It's an average, depending on your income and depending on what your costs were, that average families can't afford. There are going to be millions of American families in the next week in October sitting down and saying, how are we going to pay these damn bills? What do we have to cut to pay these bills? Or should we cut our health insurance or drop it altogether? It's estimated over 4 million people will. And why are those costs going up? Simply because the Republicans refuse to extend the ACA credits. That's all. And you say, well, negotiate it with them. Well, we want to, but they've rejected it 3 times in 3 different bills. And now it's on their backs. And by the way, if you think people don't like it now, there's going to be a crescendo as through the beginning of October, the vast majority of Americans get those bills, and they're going to say, what the heck are we going to do? We need health care, but we can't afford it. The data shows that that's one of the most important things to the American people. So we want to sit down and negotiate, but the Republicans can't do it in their partisan way, where they just say it's our way or the highway. We're not doing a thing to deal with the destruction that their health care bills have cost. Those bills are highly unpopular. In fact, Trump has talked about changing the name from Big Beautiful Bill. He even mentioned it yesterday, because he knows how unpopular it is. And they try to divert the subject, change the subject, and make up lies, like saying, oh, we're for giving health care, this health care money to undocumented immigrants. They know damn well that the law is that no Medicare, Medicaid, or ACA funds can go to undocumented immigrants. But they're so afraid to debate this issue. They have so many right-wingers in their caucus who don't want to do anything that they come up with these lies to divert attention. The bottom line is we need to stop these premiums from going up dramatically. We need to do it now, not in October when people get the notices, not in November when they have to decide whether to drop health care or reduce the health care they get. And this is not a left, right, or center issue. This is of great help. This is to help the American people into one of the things they are most worried about. So we hope they sit down with us and talk. Otherwise, it's the Republicans who will be driving us straight towards a shutdown tonight and at midnight, and the American people will blame them for bringing the federal government to a halt. Senator Durbin.
The whip's job in short order comes down to a very basic responsibility. You've got to be able to count to 60. I learned all the skills I needed in the first grade. I've used them in the Senate, and I've come to the conclusion that if you start off with 53 votes, as the Republicans do, they need 7 from our side. What Chuck Schumer has outlined is basic. If they want support from the Democratic side, for God's sake, sit down and let's talk it over at the table as soon as possible. There are plenty of tables in this Capitol for this purpose. We can do it. The second point I want to make is a very brief one. Health care is critical. If you've ever had a sick member of your family and no health insurance, you'll never forget it. That was my experience and the experience of a lot of people. To say that we look the other way when it comes to cutting health insurance or raising the premiums to a point where families can't afford them is to ignore one of the very basics of family solidarity. We believe in doing something for health care and doing it right as quickly as possible. It's important now that we do it. Tonight's vote's an evidence of the fact that it's up to us on a bipartisan basis to make a difference. Now we've got one problem. The House left. There's no one here to negotiate with in the House of Representatives. I sure hope that changes soon. The sooner they come back and go to work with us, the sooner we can solve this problem.
Thank you, Dick. Senator Murray, done a great job as our ranking member of Appropriations.
Yeah, thank you. We have been calling for Republicans to work with us to keep the government funded, to address the health care crisis they created, and to stop people's premiums from skyrocketing. Republicans haven't just stuck their heads in the sand, they've outright refused to get serious about a solution. Well, health care rates for next year are being finalized right now. Rate hikes will be in the mail any day. Open enrollment is weeks away. And still, Republicans have refused to lift a finger to prevent millions of families from being hit with massive costs. Well, Republicans may be forcing the government to shut down before they so much as talk about health care, but they will not shut down the debate. And they will not shut out the voices of families who want action before their monthly health care payments more than double. One family in my home state of Washington is about to see their monthly premium jump from $278 a month to $1,800 a month because of Republicans' inaction. That is what's at stake. That is the problem Republicans refuse to solve, and that is what they have to answer for. This has been a problem for months. Why hasn't Republican leadership joined us at the table? We have been here all year. Why do Republicans prefer to shut down the government over talking about how we save families from astronomical health care price hikes? I mean, do Republicans care about farmers? They tell us they do, because a quarter of our farmers are enrolled in those health care exchanges. Republicans say they care about small business owners and employees. Do they care about people who are self-employed? Because nearly half of them get their health care on the exchanges. Do Republicans care if their constituents lose their health care? Because some of the areas that most rely on the health care tax credits to afford that coverage are represented by Republicans. Don't tell us to wait. Don't tell us to wait. Families are waiting, and we've been at the table ready to solve this for months. Don't tell us you want to fix this later. Later is too late. The health care clock has all but run out. If Republicans refuse to act, families are going to pay the price. It will cost millions of people hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars a month. In some cases, it will cost them their health care insurance entirely. People are about to get completely priced out of their coverage. Republicans are sitting on their hands. And worse than that, they are reveling in this shutdown. Trump just said, quote, "A lot of good can come from shutdowns." He said, quote, "You can get rid of a lot of things we didn't want. They'd be Democrat things." Trump doesn't want to lift a finger to stop health care premiums from more than doubling. But he is raring to go when it comes to firing whoever he wants to, or slashing whatever he wants to, or prosecuting whoever he wants to, or telling his military his opponents are enemies within, and tweeting AI nonsense and lying about whatever he wants to. Trump doesn't care about how this shutdown is going to hurt real, average Americans across the country. He doesn't care about the Republican health care crisis. He clearly thinks this is all a game. Democrats know better. The stakes for American families are real. When people get priced out of their health care, they put off their basic care. They skimp on their prescriptions. They miss out on life-saving treatments. We are not going to let Republicans dodge this subject, and we're not going to let them delay this action on an empty promise or a pig in a poke. We're going to keep calling them to sit down, work with us to keep the government open, and solve this health care crisis.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much. I wish that President Trump had gone to Senator Shaheen's hearing today, spotlight hearing, in which a woman with MS talked about how she, from Maine, how she had already met with her doctor. Her MS is under control, but she said, I'm not going to be able to afford this medication with the premium increases. And the doctor said, she said, can I take half the dose? Can I do something like that? Doctor says, no, too much pressure on your brain. It matters in the long term. That's what's going to be happening right now if they continue down this path. I simply don't understand why when behind closed doors our Republican colleagues say, we know this is bad, we know where our farmers are, we know the tariffs are bad, we know that is bad. They keep saying it, but then they go out there and do exactly what Donald Trump wants. So that's why our leader and Hakeem Jeffries wanted that meeting. Because we know, and when you look at what they have done, they have rubber-stamped a $4 trillion debt with the big, beautiful bill. They have rubber-stamped the tariffs, which they know hurts their constituents, hurts their farmers. They've rubber-stamped their ability to even do appropriations and let him steal the money and do whatever he wants. They have rubber-stamped nominees like RFK Jr. and now regret it. That's what's been going on. So Donald Trump, author of The Art of the Deal, takes pride in that, has to come to the table. Democrats are focused, as you can see by the vote on our bill, on doing something on health care. And as we've said many times, when it comes to people's premiums, this is not a December problem, it's not a January problem, it's a now problem. Rural hospitals in Minnesota told me our patients can't handle this when a quarter, a third of them are on these, in our state, MNsure. They're not going to be able to handle this because they'll just go off insurance and then they're going to show up in our emergency rooms. That's what we're dealing with. That's why we're pushing this right now. It's a now thing.
Questions?
Leader
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Just a short time ago, Leader Thune told us that there are some conversations with Democrats to try to woo them to their side. Also, we saw Senator Cortez Masto, Senator King vote in favor of the Republican CR. Are you concerned about that at all, and are you aware of any of these conversations?
First, I'm concerned about Americans' health care. That's what we Democrats are concerned about. They're having real trouble. It's going to get a lot worse with this 114% increase, and we feel we're representing our constituents in the best way possible by insisting that Republicans come to the table. We certainly are willing to have negotiations. There's no problem with that, but they've got to be bipartisan and they've got to have real input from both sides. Yes.
Senator Thune says that he plans to have a vote again and again and again on the GOP CR. So can you guarantee with 100% certainty that that plan will never get 60 votes?
Look, the bottom line is, as I said, our guarantee is to the American people that we're going to fight as hard as we can for their health care, plain and simple. Yes.
Senator Thune just said before you got here that he disagrees with the premise of these subsidies they were put in place during COVID. They should have never been extended this far. Are you willing to take anything less other than what you demanded in your bill?
Look, the bottom line is we're not going to negotiate this bill in public. We need to come to a bipartisan solution that protects America's health care. Yes, in the back. No, okay, go ahead.
What's
You'll
your
go next.
strategy for getting Republicans to negotiate at this point, given that they haven't so far?
The strategy is the American people are demanding it, and going to demand it more and more on October 1st, October 2nd. They're going to keep demanding that we do something about this. And Republicans are feeling the heat. You have a good number of Senate Republicans and House Republicans, as was mentioned. When they talk to us privately, they say this is untenable. When I even sat with the president yesterday and explained to him about this, he said, "Ooh, that's bad. That'll hurt me." So the bottom line is the American people are making their voices known to the Republicans, and that's what we know is going to happen. And hopefully they'll understand that and come to bipartisan solutions that help the American people. Yes. No, right there. No. It's everyone's skipping.
Thank you. Yesterday you said after the White House meeting that you told President Trump and Republicans they could take two things from your bill and put them in to avoid a shutdown. That was the ACA credits you mentioned and the provisions on impoundments and rescissions. You did not mention the provisions that would roll back the Medicaid cuts. Is that still a demand for Democrats, or is that something you guys are taking on?
Look, we care about everything. You know, we care about health care across the board. I wanted to start off to the president with a couple of things, but it's not an exclusive list. Yes.
With two additional Democrats voting for the Republican CR tonight, doesn't that undermine your leverage as you try to seek a negotiation with Republicans?
The bottom line is, again, what gives us the ability to win this argument with the American people is we're standing for what they want with health care, and they are not. Thank you, everybody.
3 votes tonight. Why isn't your argument resonating with Republicans so you pick up some votes?
G.G. Antoni?
All right, folks, there you saw Democratic leadership in Congress addressing the impending government shutdown. As we mentioned, we're about 4 hours away from that happening, seemingly things remaining at a stalemate. To get you caught up to speed on the movement that has happened, or really lack of movement that's happened in Congress, there was a Democrat measure that was rejected, and there was a vote on the Republican funding bill, also rejected. It had passed the House, but it did fail in the Senate. Keep in mind, this is that temporary funding bill. It's meant to keep the government open through November 21st. You kind of heard this alluded to in the press conference just a few moments ago. There were some folks who are Democrats and or who caucus with the Democrats, who voted for the Republican measure. They are Senator Cortez Masto of Nevada, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, and then Senator King, who's an independent from Maine, who does caucus with the Democrats. Senator Rand Paul was the only Republican to vote against this. So barreling towards this midnight deadline, seemingly things will not prevail in the sense of keeping the government open, but of course we'll keep an eye on any developments. It looks like there's still some dialogue that's underway on the Senate floor as we speak. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in 2 minutes with an update on this headline, of course, any others popping up in the meantime. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, folks, here to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Of course, the forefront of our headlines tonight, the impending government shutdown, as we are now about 4 hours away from that happening and seemingly no headway made in getting the two sides, Republicans and Democrats, together on a spending plan. Should mention within the last couple of minutes, NBC News is reporting the Office of Management and Budget has issued a memo tonight to the heads of the departments and agencies that are basically directing them to prepare for the shutdown. This is because, as we mentioned before we took our quick break, the Senate did reject those two bills that were proposed to keep the government open. The OMB director has written this copy of the memo, posted it to social media platform X, ordering the affected agencies show now execute their plans for an orderly shutdown. The memo is also cautioning that the length of the shutdown would be, in his words, difficult to predict. He goes on to say, regardless, employees should report to work for their next regularly scheduled tour of duty to undertake orderly shutdown activity. That letter, by the way, once again, you can see it's been posted on X by the Office of Management and Budget. As we mentioned, there are different ways that this shutdown could potentially impact the nation and specifically the Carolinas. Essentially, there would be potentially some furloughs to non-essential employees. Those who are considered to be essential would continue to work. So we're talking about active duty service members, TSA agents, but they could potentially, if the shutdown goes beyond 2 weeks, be forced to work without pay. And then we have the potential, of course, as we just mentioned in the early part of this hour, for national parks to be shut down, which we heard from folks in the high country just this past hour. There are concerns that that could hinder a lot of the progress they were hoping to make this season, a high tourism season for them in the high country in the wake of Helene, as we've come up past now that 1 year mark. We've got some dialogue still underway on the Senate floor tonight. We are going to check in with that as we speak. We've got senators discussing, I think they're discussing, let's go to that now, Sean, and let's see. They're still speaking. Yes, they are.
Not counting the weird ones who like inflicting pain and doing damage for the benefit of a bunch of creepy right-wing billionaires who've propped them up their whole lives. And the reason we're here is really twofold. One, as they've shown during the Trump regime, Republicans really don't want to govern. They want to rule. They don't want to talk to Democrats, even where they need our votes. Here they need our votes. And yet, what have we been offered to get those votes? Nothing. Not even discussions. The president only met with the Democratic leaders just yesterday. And he didn't seem to be aware of what was at stake here for the Americans who are about to lose a huge health care benefit. They just go wildly forward. We've seen it over and over again here on the Senate floor. How many times in just the few months that we've been here in this administration have Republicans done the thing that they were furious when we even talked about doing, to overrule the parliamentarian and change the rules to make things easier for themselves rather than negotiate with us? My count is 4 already. 4! And we're only 9 months in. They don't want to govern. They don't want to talk to us. They want to rule. They want to dictate to us. And at the same time, the other reason we're here is that there's this strange Republican fixation with taking health care away from people. I do not understand it. There are lots of Republican constituents who really depend on Medicaid, who really feel great that they're on Medicare, who really have their family budgets made possible by the credits from the Affordable Care Act. It's not like Democrats get the benefit of this. Everybody gets the benefit of this. And yet, what have we been put through just in these months? $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid. $1 trillion. in cuts to Medicaid. Already, hospitals and nursing homes and doctors' practices are reeling at what those cuts mean for their financial viability. Medicare, $500 billion in cuts, hidden in the bill in a tricky way so that the cuts come through sequestration and nobody has to own them. They can do a Pontius Pilate hand wash of the cuts. Well, no, we saw what you did. You own it. It's a $500 billion cut to Medicare. And why you would want to do that, I cannot imagine, but that's what you did. And now we have these cuts to people receiving help, paying for their health care under the Affordable Care Act. It's going to be about 40,000 Rhode Islanders. These aren't people who have loads of money. Their premiums are going to, on average, double or better. I mentioned a retired mental health counselor yesterday. She's going to have $477 in added expense every single month because of this. And it all starts now. It all starts happening now. So when we're told, why are we forcing the issue now? It's because now is when the issue is upon us. When we're told, why don't we negotiate later? My question is, why aren't we negotiating now? Why would we believe when we're told that you'll negotiate later on this when you won't negotiate now on this? Now when you need our votes, you won't negotiate on something that you say you'll negotiate later? Why does that make any sense? Why is that even remotely credible? The harm starts now. The negotiations should start now. And frankly, what Democrats are asking for is something you ought to be doing anyway, just to help your own constituents. This shouldn't be hard at all. We should not be here having this conversation. This should have been resolved already, except that the Republican majority wants to rule, not govern, and they have this strange fixation with taking away health care, even from their own constituents. Over and over again, we've seen it. We've seen it with the repeated overrulings of the parliamentarian. We've seen it with the Beautiful for Billionaires bill that got rammed through with a simple majority. We've seen it with the change in the rules to allow 100 nominees to go through at a time under advice and consent. We have seen it with clean air standards that help everyone being repealed over and over and over again. The Republicans take the path that allows them to rule, not to govern, that allows them to ignore the minority party even when they need our votes, even when what we're asking for is in their constituents' interests, even when what we're asking for is something that their constituents want. Even then, we're up against this blockade. So I hope that Republicans come to their senses. I hope that the president realizes what he is doing and that we can put an end to this shutdown as quickly as possible. But let me make this absolutely clear. This is a shutdown that lands entirely at the feet of the Republican Party that controls the Senate, that controls the House, that controls the presidency, that won't negotiate with Democrats even when it needs our votes, and that has an unhealthy fixation with taking away health care from their fellow Americans. I yield the floor.
Madam President.
The senator from Delaware is recognized.
Madam President, I'm asking why we're here. Why we're here on the floor of the Senate as the hours tick down to the end of the federal fiscal year and the shutdown of the federal government. I've served here 15 years. I've seen my share of shutdowns, and I know how much they hurt. How much they hurt the men and women of our military, federal law enforcement, folks who serve and protect our country at home and abroad. And they should not have to wonder when or if they'll get paid. A shutdown isn't good for our reputation abroad and our cohesion at home. I have always worked to find some path, some deal, some way to keep the government open. And I've talked to a dozen colleagues in recent days about this fight and about tonight. This is about health care. This is about my party saying enough is enough. We know that if you have health care, everything else can work itself out. And if you don't have your health, almost nothing else matters. President Trump ran on making America healthy again, on reducing prices, on making life easier for the working people of our country and their families. And instead, what we've seen is decision after decision, action after action by President Trump and the Republicans in Congress that raises prices on health care, on insurance, on drugs, on medications, whether it's the tariffs being imposed on prescription medications or the decision to end subsidies that keep health insurance affordable, or it's laying off thousands of researchers working to help cure pediatric cancer or address ALS or do research into HIV/AIDS, decision after decision that moves us in the wrong direction, that makes us sicker, poorer, and more divided. I'm usually one of the first to walk across the aisle and say, let's find a solution, let's find a way out of this, and I've been doing that in recent days, talking with colleagues. But I can't see a way forward if we can't change direction and together say to the people we serve, we want to help with your health care. We want to stop the cuts to NIH and CDC. We want to reduce the increases in health insurance costs. We want to help you and your family. In my home state of Delaware, emergency room wait times are too long. And as millions of Americans get thrown off of health insurance, they're going to go to the emergency room. And those wait times will get longer and longer for all of us. Next month, we're going to find out how much health insurance premiums go up. For some Americans, they're going to double. But for all of us, they will go up. Health care is getting costlier, and Americans are getting sicker. So why am I standing on this floor tonight saying I'm not voting to keep this government open? Because enough is enough. There are ways we can and should work together to change direction, to put on the floor the bipartisan health appropriations bill that'll restore tens of billions of dollars to the NIH and CDC, that'll stop Trump's cuts to American health care and insurance and research. There's a path towards reforming and extending the Affordable Care Act that both parties should agree on. But folks, if you're listening, your member of Congress needs to hear from you, needs to know that you want us to work together to reverse course and end Trump's tragic cuts to health care. If my colleagues don't get those calls, they won't change direction. And if they don't change direction, we won't reopen this government. Make no mistake, we have Republicans in control of the House and Senate and the White House. If they want to find a way forward that reduces the harm to Americans and our health care, we can. And I'll be one of the first to extend my hand to find that path. But if we don't change direction, we shouldn't reopen this government, because Americans have taken too many hits already, too much additional cost, too much cuts to health care research, too much increase to health insurance costs. This is a fight about America's health care, and we're fighting for you. Thank you. With that, I yield the floor.
All right, folks, we are going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more coverage of the imminent federal government shutdown at midnight tonight. We still have some dialogue going on the Senate floor, as well as other speakers around the nation. So we'll try to get to that when we come back. And of course, anything big and breaking will pop in with that information. Once again, back in 2 minutes. Thanks so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Of course, a big headline that we're following very closely tonight, the imminent government shutdown, now just a couple of hours away. We still have some dialogue happening on the Senate floor. Looks like we've got the Democratic senator from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, speaking. Let's listen in.
To help millions of Americans sleep easier. We're still dealing with the tariffs. We're still going to push on that, which has led to all of these grocery cost increases. We see what's happening with the electricity cost increase. Costs are up, chaos is up, and corruption is up. But there is one thing we can do, and that's one of the biggest cost drivers when we look at inflation, and that is health care. So let's start with how we got here. We know that over 110 million Americans depend on Medicare and Medicaid. 110 million. These programs cover everything from hospital visits to life-saving prescriptions to the long-term care that allows seniors to remain in their homes. And these programs, along with Social Security and SNAP, which is the nutrition program, have driven poverty among seniors for years to record lows. Best poverty-fighting program there is, Medicare, Medicaid. But the budget that congressional Republicans passed earlier this summer without our votes, again, didn't listen to us, makes the biggest cut in history to Medicare and Medicaid. That's right, the biggest cut in history, while all these other costs are going up. Their budget cut Medicaid by over $1 trillion and will trigger more than $500 billion in Medicare cuts. How does that happen? Because they didn't put, well, the debt is so high from that bill because of the $1 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans and the $1 trillion in tax cuts and giveaways for corporations, that it actually automatically triggered $500 billion in Medicare cuts on hospitals. So when we go, as we did, our members on the Democratic side last week, and met with people in hospitals and patients and doctors and nurses, we heard about that. We heard about the 15 million Americans that are going to get shoved off their health care. But the one thing they could have done, and they voted against it once, but we know behind closed doors are very interested in doing something about this, it is the tax credits to help people afford their health insurance. Without these tax credits, more than 20 million Americans will see their premiums skyrocket. Kaiser study just today came out. Double the premiums. That's why one of my hospitals told me, look, of course Medicaid hits us hard, of course Medicare does, but so many of our patients and the people who visit our clinic are on MNsure, that's the Affordable Care Act plan in my state, that if this happens, a whole bunch of them won't be able to afford it. Then they're going to show up in our emergency rooms, they're going to show up without insurance, they're not going to get the surgeries that they need, and they're not going to do their doctor's visits. That's why you've seen some Republicans, some overtly saying, we've got to do something about this. They shouldn't be talking about off-ramps. They should be talking about how to get their constituents off a cliff. Earlier this year, we marked the 60th anniversary of Medicare and Medicaid. As we look back at this monumental achievement, we should be strengthening health care in this country, not undermining it. We made progress, right? Capping out-of-pocket costs, passing my bill to allow Medicare to finally negotiate for better prices, making health care more affordable. But we should be building on that progress because the status quo is not okay for people right now. We should be building on that progress by making improvements to these programs, not making them harder. So we are calling on our Republican colleagues to pass our bill. And if they can bring themselves to do that, or at least to sit in a room and negotiate and actually get this done, the president prides himself in the art of the deal, well, show us the deal. Don't say you don't need our votes, because you just found out tonight that you do. They need our colleagues to stop taking cues from a guy who, after a meeting about one of the most important moments in his presidency, puts out a deep fake video, offensive, making fun of the leaders. Who does that? What other president has done something like that when they're actually in a negotiation? This isn't political theater. These are real people, like the woman at Senator Shaheen's spotlight hearing today, who was from Maine, and she is going to talk to her doctor, literally met with her doctor to say, okay, I can't afford these increases, so how do I manage to ration my medication for MS? And the doctor said, it doesn't work like that. The pressure will build in your brain. Well, I hope the pressure from the public, when they see what's going on, is going to build. And we're starting to see it all over the country right now. This is not the time to just accept the status quo and say we can't do anything about it while our constituents are going off that premium cliff. So maybe the president needs to get out and talk to that farmer whose soybean market has dried up. Now he's not going to be able to afford his health insurance, and see that perfect storm of ugly. He's not going to meet those people on the golf course in Mar-a-Lago, I can tell you that right now. He needs to get out there. And it's time to start taking cues and listen to real people and not memes and not deep fake videos. This is not a joke. Our bill is a path forward, and we ask them to come to the table and negotiate with us. Madam President, I yield the floor.
And of course, we do continue to follow all of the developments with the imminent government shutdown. We expect to hear more speakers throughout the evening. Of course, midnight, the deadline to get a deal done. And we talked about how two measures, one Republican, one Democrat led, both failed in the Senate. Democrats holding back. They say they have some concerns with how health care is being gutted in their terms. And we also have on the Republican side this short-term funding measure that's expected to carry funding for the government through November. You have Republicans saying, well, let's just pass this now. Let's negotiate in the interim as that stopgap bill covers the government funding for the next several weeks. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more coverage here. Thanks for sticking with us on Live Impact News. Welcome back, folks, to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We're turning away for just a moment here from the dialogue over the impending government shutdown to discuss an executive order the president signed today, one of many, of course, during his term here. We've got this one pertaining to the use of artificial intelligence in order to tackle pediatric cancer. So we'll take you now to that announcement from just a little while ago.
Children who are just really, some are absolutely better and others are getting better. You're all going to be better very soon. So they won't even need it, I don't believe. I want to thank Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who we see a lot of lately. You've been really active, haven't you? You've been very active. Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who's so fantastic, and I guess we reached a deal with Harvard today, so we'll see how that, what you have to do is paper it, right, Linda? Just yes, sir. Paper it out. That'll be great, though. It's going to have to do with something that's very important to everybody. CMS Administrator Mehmet Oz, FDA Commissioner Marty McCary, Director of the National Institute of Health, Jay Bhattacharya. Is that good, Jay? That's pretty good. Perfect. Right? I'm getting better. That's perfect. I'm getting better. Science and Technology Advisor, Michael Ratzios. AI and Crypto Czar, David Sachs. You're doing great, David. As well as a friend of mine, Stephanie McMahon, and her incredible husband, Triple H. You all know Triple H. I'm not going to fight that guy. He's one of the greatest. I also want to thank all of the brave young people who are with us today, and they've gone through a lot, but it's really coming out very good. And I just gave them a beautiful coin. And we're going to save that coin, right? A beautiful coin. In 2019, I was proud to launch the Childhood Cancer Data Initiative. And I think Stephanie was a big factor, right, Linda? She was a big factor as to what we're doing right now. Absolutely. Which invested $50 million a year into pediatric cancer research. And today, in line with recommendations made by Secretary Kennedy and the MAHA Commission, we're doubling that investment, adding another $50 million to Childhood Cancer Data Initiative. We're doing that immediately. And we have a lot of money coming in with the tariffs. We've never had money like this coming in. We're a rich country again. We were a dead country 1 year ago, and now we're the richest country. We're hot. We're a hot country. So it's an honor to do that. In honor of all of you, we're doing that, okay? With this order, I'm also directing the federal government to fully utilize artificial intelligence to supercharge pediatric cancer research. It's pretty amazing what's happening. For years, we've been amassing data about childhood cancer, but until now, we've been unable to fully exploit this trove of information and apply it to practical medicine. Using cutting-edge AI, we will empower our scientists and researchers to discover new treatments, cures, and prevention strategies. AI can also make groundbreaking trials and therapies, and it's just going to be so accessible to everybody, families all across the country. So it's going to be amazing. What's happening is amazing. And we have more AI. We're leading in AI. We're leading China by a lot. We're leading everybody by a lot. They're creating their own energy. We let them build their own energy plant because we don't have the energy. Nobody does to feed them. The amount of energy just the AI needs coming into this country is double what we have right now. So we're letting them go out and create their own energy plants and their own electricity, and they're doing it. We're giving them permits to build electric plants. They're becoming sort of a utility. Maybe they'll do better with being a utility. Who knows? They'll do better with being a utility than they will being AI. What do you think of the chances that I hope I'm wrong about that, or they made a bad bet, right? So anyway, but I want to just say that we're going to defeat childhood cancer once and for all, and I'd like to ask Stephanie to say a few words. She's a very special person and very, very much involved in this. Thank you very much, Steph. It was right here.
My mother's making me step forward.
That's right. Your mother. She'll do this. My mother.
Well, Mr. President, thank you very much. You've already acknowledged this incredible team here, and all of these people standing behind me were inspired by the story of a little boy named Connor Mahalik. He was a little boy who didn't want to hug me because he gave choke-out hugs. He booed his favorite nurse when she came to give his chemo, and he always worried about his dad because his dad was Connor's best friend. Connor was a WWE fan who I met after one of our big events, the Royal Rumble. You could tell he was sick. He had a big scar that was running up the back of his neck and a lump on his head, but you would never know it from his personality. He told me about the t-shirt that he was wearing that was dragging on the ground because WWE superstar Sheamus, who's 6'5", had given it to him. Underneath that was his Daniel Bryan t-shirt, and underneath that was his Skylanders t-shirt because that was his favorite toy. And as I stood up from my aforementioned chokeout hug, Connor's dad told me that he didn't have long to live. And I didn't want to believe that. I kissed him goodbye on his soft little cheek, and when he looked back at me, I made an unspoken promise to fight for him and kids just like him. Kids shouldn't even know what cancer is, let alone have to face it, and this incredible team believes that too. This executive order makes kids with cancer the first focus of AI innovation across healthcare in America. If there is one thing in the world that could bring us together, please let it be our children. Because I can almost guarantee, if your child was diagnosed with cancer, you wouldn't care what party their doctor belonged to. You would just want the best. And President Trump is doing just that, enabling that every child with cancer gets the best care possible. And we couldn't be more grateful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you very much. She's done that before, hasn't she? Great job. Bobby, please.
Today, President Trump signed an executive order that makes an historic promise. We will harness America's innovation in artificial intelligence to find cures for pediatric cancer. We stand here today because of Stephanie McMahon-Levesque never wavered in her 11-year commitment to give every child a future free of cancer. She proves how one person's courage can change what is possible. Cancer is now the leading cause of chronic disease-related death in children, and its incidence has risen by more than 40% since 1975. We cannot accept that. We must act with urgency. The MAHA strategy report released earlier this month directs HHS to focus on research that harnesses AI to uncover causes, identify risks early, and take action in childhood and young adulthood to prevent cancer. Now, this executive order directs the MAHA Commission, working with our nation's top science and technology leaders, to deploy AI to transform cancer care and research. We will accelerate progress in the Childhood Cancer Data Initiative that President Trump launched in 2019, and that means building stronger data systems, using AI to decode complex biology, designing better clinical trials that deliver faster, more effective treatment for kids. The order doubles federal investment in the Child Cancer Data Initiative with an additional $50 million just this year. NIH will expand research while the private sector and universities will bring their best tools to the table. Together, we will ensure that every innovation, every breakthrough goes to work for our children. The order guarantees that AI will be integrated into HHS interoperability networks. We will make electronic health records and claims data work for patients and researchers. We're already doing that, and always with parents in control of their child's health information. No family should have to fight cancer with outdated tools or without access to the very best science. For too long, families have fought childhood cancer while our systems lag behind. President Trump, thank you for your leadership in changing all that. This executive order is about action, unlocking cures, empowering families, and giving every child the chance to grow up healthy and strong. With American innovation and leadership, we can make our children healthy again.
Bobby, do they know why there's quite an increase that's taken place over the last number of years? Do they know why that? Do they have any idea why that's happening?
We are doing that research, and Jay Bhattacharya can talk about that. We're doing that research now for the first time. We're focusing on that, in particular colon cancers and these cancers that have that never affected children before, and suddenly are epidemic in our children. And we're going to find the causes. They're environmental causes. We're going to identify them and work to eliminate them.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. Jay, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, President Trump, for signing this historic executive order directing your administration to use advanced artificial intelligence technologies to cure childhood cancer. By signing this executive order, the administration is advancing the NIH Childhood Cancer Data Initiative's coordinated pediatric, adolescent, and young adult rare cancer, first launched under President Trump's direction in 2019. When I was a young medical student in the 1990s, I had the privilege of spending a month in a pediatric cancer ward treating children with cancer. And I have to say it was the most difficult month of my life. I left for home every day in tears. Watching little children cope with a deadly disease is hard. They should be playing with their friends, going to school, living their best lives. But instead, they bravely face cancer. These are the bravest kids I've ever met. I have tremendous admiration for the scientists who devote their lives to finding cures for kids with cancer, for the doctors and nurses who take care of them, and for their parents who suffer alongside them, care for them, and love them. This year, nearly 9,500 children will be diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. In the mid-1970s, the 5-year survival for cancer was 58%. Today, the cancer survival rate for children with cancer is 85%. This is because of the tremendous investments we've made in treating childhood cancer, in researching it. And it's worth celebrating this achievement. But I say that 85% is still too low. We need to be at 100, whilst we still have a long way to go. The treatments these little kids undergo involve therapies like chemo and radiation that put them through hell. Even with 85% will be cured, the therapies themselves can cause health problems as kids age into adulthood. Nearly 60% of cancer survivors experience severe life-threatening complications in adulthood because of these treatments. And so we need better treatments so that we can raise the survival rate and reduce the side effects. This initiative builds on the CCDI's mission to gather data from every child, adolescent, and young adult diagnosed with cancer, no matter where they receive care. It aims to develop a platform of tools to bring together clinical care, research tools like molecular characterization and genetic information, tools that will improve preventive measures, treatment, quality of life, survival for childhood cancer. By uniting families, clinicians, and researchers, by harnessing the power of AI, CCDI will accelerate diagnosis, inform treatment, and develop the next generation of life-saving therapies. This is not about collecting data alone. It's about giving families hope. Today, we commit to taking this work to the next level. With this executive order that President Trump is signing, we're building a future where every child's data contributes to faster diagnosis. Artificial intelligence helps us uncover faster, more precise treatments, improve quality of life, and better survival. And finally, let me extend my sincere congratulations and gratitude to President Trump for his leadership and vision in giving us this opportunity to make America healthy again, to rigorously push the boundaries of science and bring hope to millions of families. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. It's very nice. Appreciate it. Director Kratsios, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for your leadership on this issue. I am thrilled that our MAHA strategy prioritizes utilizing AI in the fight against cancer, and that this executive order is putting a priority to this action. Thank you for your commitment, Mr. President, to the United States for maintaining its global leadership in artificial intelligence across models, data sets, applications, and to issue an AI action plan to do just that. Your foresight in the first term, leading you to establish the CCDI to gather, harness, and share data on childhood cancers, has positioned us today to leverage AI in a way we could never imagine before. With America's pioneering models, American researchers now have the best tools in the world to turn the CCDI data into the building blocks of life-changing breakthroughs. So I and my team at OSTP are thrilled to partner with our teams at HHS, at NIH, and with David to empower the development of gold standard applications for the pediatric cancer research and to play our very small part in trying to protect the health and happiness of America's children. Thank you, Mr. President.
David, please.
Thank you, sir. Well, first of all, I just want to thank Stephanie McMahon and all of us for helping people together here. For years they played villains on TV, but they're actually very nice people in real life. But it's because of your passion that we're all here today, so thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership on this. First of all, you did have the foresight to create this childhood cancer database way back in 2019, and that's what's going to power the AI. It's going to give us the data to find all the patterns in. The other thing you've done is you've made it your policy of this administration to support innovation, to support infrastructure, to support energy. And because of that, we have an AI boom going on right now. 3.8% growth rate in the last quarter in GDP, and a big part of that is because of the AI boom that you've unleashed. So thank you, sir, for doing that. And I think that we can see today that this AI boom is not just going to be about dollars and cents, but about saving lives as well. We're going to get some miraculous cures out of this. So thank you to everyone who's here today.
Thank you very much. Good job. We just had a meeting, and Oz was at the meeting and really was a dominant factor along with Bobby. And maybe you could just say a couple of words about our past meeting where we're going to be lowering drug prices by 50, 100, 200, even 500%. Even 1,000. We have 1,000% also. We have one coming up next week, a big one, 1,000% reduction in price. Do you want to give just a couple of words on that, Oz?
It's a historic day. For the first time, we've had the magnitude of give from the pharmaceutical industry. One of their leading lights, Alfred Boula and his company Pfizer, agreed, something the president has been pushing on since his first term and has been calling me quite frequently on speed dial over this term to make sure that Secretary Kennedy and I would seriously engage industry. They have agreed to several important concessions. First, we will have most favored nation drug pricing in this country for everyone on Medicaid. So our most vulnerable populations will not be forced to pay 3 times or more, 5, 6, 7 times more for the exact same pills in the same bottles as it costs in other countries. That'll make it a lot easier for governors to manage their budgets and shows again a distinct passion that the president has for helping people who are most vulnerable. We've also gotten all new drugs to be released in this country to be priced at most favored nation, which means by the end of the president's term, 95% of all pharmaceutical drugs in America will be at most favored nation pricing. Again, no more discrepancies between what folks in other countries can buy their drugs for and what's being purchased in this country. Pfizer also agreed, as will companies next week when they come to visit this same White House, to onshore drugs to bring their production back into America so American workers will benefit as well. But at the same time, this is critical, it allowed Pfizer, and we believe for other pharmaceutical companies, to maintain their innovative edge. We want America to continue to find cures like the ones that saved the lives of some of the children that I'm looking at right now. Those beautiful faces and smiles are here because American innovation was not dulled, not blunted, but we can solve that need and thread the needle by also making healthcare affordable so Americans no longer, including children like this, be forced to make a difficult choice between groceries and pharmaceuticals. And I must say, Mr. President, since this morning, if you just look at the stock market, there's been support of this decision made by the CEO of Pfizer. Their stock has benefited. So I think it's the right thing for the company, the right thing for the policies of this administration, which is a pretty cool place to work. But most importantly, it's the right thing for the American people.
Thank you very much. And maybe we'll just finish it off with Linda, because she's been such an incredible cabinet member and done such a good job. Maybe you want to say something about your unbelievable daughter and son-in-law, because they've worked very hard on this.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to do that. I don't think that, any mother could be any more proud of all of the efforts that Stephanie's made in support also of Paul. Stephanie first talked about this 10 or 11 years ago after Lil Connor. And I remember one of the things that she said to me was, I really would like to somehow convene the people and the scientists who think outside of the box, because research is done in very standard terms. You do this, and yes, you have to do that. But she said, I really would like to tap into some of the most creative and inventive minds in the country to be able to look at research differently for pediatric cancer. And she did that. It took her about 10 years, and she kept tapping in and calling people, being pretty relentless about it, driven herself by a mother's heart. And I couldn't be any more proud of the work she's done. I'm happy to stand by and be a supportive mom and be very proud of her today.
Thanks. Good job you're doing. Thank you very much, Linda. Okay, any questions, please?
Mr. President, as we inch closer to a government shutdown this morning, you said you might...
All right, folks, we are going to pivot away from this and take a quick break. We should mention that the Senate has officially adjourned for the night. They are expected to return tomorrow at 10 in the morning, but essentially their departure without having passed a spending bill all but ensures that the federal government will shut down at midnight tonight. We'll be back in 2 minutes with the latest updates. Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Been following a lot of headlines throughout the evening. Of course, the latest and most breaking one that we've been following, the impending government shutdown, which is all but certain at this point, as the Senate has officially adjourned without passing a spending measure. Last time the government shut down was 7 years ago, lasted more than 30 days. Unknown exactly how quickly this shutdown could be resolved, but it's essentially meant to start at 12:01 Wednesday morning. We know that the Senate's set to come back at 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, but it will be unknown whether they'll actually have made any headway in the hours since they left tonight. We're going to turn now to a local headline. Of course, we've got the elections coming up in just a few weeks. We've got the mayoral race in Charlotte that's really heating up. And the candidates took some time to address the public and answer some questions. So with that, we're going to turn to that mayoral candidate forum, and we'll jump in with anything big and breaking.
Unhoused and what's going on with people that are sleeping on the streets. At one time, we were able to do something better about this, and I think that we just lost our way, and we have to find our way to do this again. The second thing that I want to do in my role is to be ready to have new jobs coming in. I think jobs are the way that people have the ability to have homes and families and to do something that's really perfect for our community, because we are fast growing. And in this fast growth that we're having, I hope that we will have opportunities for people to find a way to have jobs and a way to have a way to live. And then the final thing that I support greatly is our transportation mobility plan. And people say, why? You know, why? Charlotte has got a lot of things going on. We have too many people coming in. I've heard every argument for it. But the argument that I make for transportation and for the ability to have a mobility plan is that most of the people that ride public transit are people that are that look like me. And they have no cars. Now, most of you guys probably drove over here with a car, in a car. But people, a car costs a lot more money than a bus system or a rail system. And I know that we've got to do something about getting people to work. And that means that we need to engage in a rail system or a bus system so that they can have a way to do all of those other things. A home for their kids, a place that they can actually say, I have a job and I'm working there because I get to work on time instead of being left behind. You know, these are the things, these small things that we can do to make it possible for our city to grow and to welcome new people coming in so that they can give us the ability to continue to grow in a good way. So those are the three initiatives that I have. And let me say it again, we ought to always think about housing, especially now, the unhoused. We need to think about jobs for people that don't have them now. How do we make it possible for them to have? And then the ability to move around the city so that if you're going to work, you have a way to get there. So I hope that you'll understand this initiative that I have and believe in, and I greatly appreciate the time that I get to speak, Natalie. That's it. Thank you.
Folks, we want to break in here with some new information just coming into the newsroom. NBC News is reporting that the president has withdrawn the nomination of E.J. Antony as next commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This position particularly embattled in recent weeks because we know that the president had been critical of the prior commissioner. He had complaints about the jobs numbers, and she was no longer in that position. Of course, he had to pick a new person, E.J. Antony, apparently with no reason. We're not really seeing a reason that's been disclosed. That has been withdrawn, and the White House essentially saying here, quote, the White House looks forward to nominating a new candidate to lead the BLS very soon. So this is an interesting development on that front. Of course, we'll keep you updated as we learn more on who could be coming next for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. With that, we'll turn back to the mayoral forum, as we just heard from Mayor Vi-Lyles, and now set to hear from the next candidate.
I'm happy for a Tuesday morning where we're in Sept. So I want to say this place holds a little special place in my heart. It's my second time running. When I ran last time, my first event, I just registered to run, 2 weeks ago. I get the invite, I show up. I think I'm just going to be like shaking hands and no, you go sit up there and you're going to be debating Mayor Vi-Lyles. All right, throw me in the fire right away. But it was a very interesting, informative experience. Mayor Lyles, you were kind to me, and I've said this so many times, I appreciate that. And I remember she asked me, why are you doing this? What are you hoping to get out of it? And I said, I want to learn something. So then right at the end of the campaign, we were at the Telemundo debate, and she said, what did you learn? And I said, what I've learned is that most of the people running for office aren't as different as we're presented to be. Everyone wants the same things. And we forget that. We want good jobs, we want stability, we want safety. We don't want to have to worry about existential threats. We want to be able to deal with our lives and have these other things that shouldn't be on our plate pushed aside. And I think that I present a plan which I will acknowledge in some ways may seem radically different to what we're normal. I'm a libertarian candidate. Libertarian, for those of you who don't know, operates in a very simple philosophy. Don't hurt people, and don't take their stuff. Equal rights for everyone. But when you start to apply that, there are certainly complexities. What is the role of the government when you're taking from someone and giving to another? The government's always choosing winners and losers. And I think where our city has room for improvement comes down to decisions that have been made in a central planning capacity from city council that have had far-reaching negative consequences that they can't acknowledge because of the two-party system. So you can't say I did something wrong and I have to get better because the other side might win. And so my platform, if you check out my website, prospercharlotte.com, the very first thing is voting reform. I would love to see Charlotte be a pilot for a preference voting program, even at some city council or similar type races. And all that means is that instead of voting for one candidate or the other, you either choose the people you like and not the ones you don't, or you rank people. It's nonpartisan. So you're choosing ideas, not parties. And it really gives a chance to get some innovation out there. The second thing that I want to talk about is public safety. Obviously, it is on everyone's mind. Kerry Donovan had showed up, maybe he should have showed up, held another press conference or something, I don't know. And I do say that a little bit mocking. The sensationalism is not helping us. Again, believe it or not, I want to commend my Lyles. After the Irina stabbing, I thought your statement about mental health was appropriate. We do have a mental health situation. We have a serious homelessness situation. There are a lot of people who have become homeless through no fault of their own. But the fact is, when you get depressed and you self-medicate, people get addicted to drugs and they're mired in depression in a horrible situation, and it's really difficult to get out, and that does drive crime. So it has to be a twofold approach. We have to address the underlying causes of homelessness and crime, which are poverty, job insecurity, depression, and substance abuse. And we also have to have a more robust public safety response from our police. In particular, we have in Charlotte unrolled in the last couple of years a community policing program that has had some very positive results. We're in the top 3% of crime for major cities in the U.S., which is not a great stat, but we have seen significant declines year over year. I would like to unroll a full community policing program. Put police in a place, pay them well to take care of that place, not to make arrests, not to meet statistics, but to keep people safe, to enforce laws that matter. I would not like to see us spend $1 million on an MRAP machine, this is 2 years ago, that is a military machine that can breach buildings in the event of a bomb threat. That seems like a waste of money to me. Housing. We need more affordable housing. It's a joke in newspapers, everyone knows that it is getting really expensive to live in Charlotte. How do you solve that? You build. We gotta build. We gotta build. We gotta pull back the city council's centralized control and just creating this hurdle to getting houses built, because more supply, when demand is there, lowers prices. This is very simple, basic economics. In terms of transportation, I am very much against the transportation tax. You will read that it's a 1% increase. That is people that didn't pass math in elementary school. It's a 14% increase. It's a 1 point increase, and that is a big difference. Estimates are cost on average $240 a person. I'm not rich, but I'm lucky. My wife and I both have jobs. $240 a year is not going to kill us. But on top of a hyperinflationary environment that our federal government has given us, prices are shooting up. On top of other tax increases that we've seen in the last couple of years to do things like fund billionaires, tennis courts, and stadiums. And on top of the rising cost of fuel and the lengthening transportation, that's really going to hurt people who can't afford it. And then we're going to have more people out on the streets, and you're just less generational wealth and less of the history of Charlotte being able to build from that foundation. Again, I really appreciate y'all being here and listening. This is awesome. I'd like to just say, and like, you watch the news and everyone hates each other and everyone knows how to solve everything all of a sudden, but this is where it matters. This is the people getting involved and really dealing with issues, government for the people, by the people, having an opportunity to make a difference. So thank you.
Our first question comes from Ken Combs.
Seems only yesterday that my friend and your homeboy, Mayor Ron Gibson, brought you by our home on Holly Street to introduce you to me and Hazel. Only yesterday. We've had nonpartisan elections, Rob, and that didn't really work out. Those who don't know the history are destined to repeat it. It's a waste of money, you say, until you have a bomb in the building, and that's pretty likely now. So my question to you is, considering so much of what you've said in support of or in endorsing some of the things that Mayor Lyles has done, why are you wasting our time getting in this race?
So I appreciate the question. First, I would argue that any time a person is getting involved in politics is never a waste of time. I would encourage more people to get involved, run for office. It's not that hard to do. As far as the bomb threat and the MRAP, first of all, we actually already had one in the city. We're just never going to agree on the likelihood of that happening. You're more likely to die from a coconut falling on your head than from a bomb falling on you. I'm not going to spend $1 million on a coconut insurance policy. So it does seem superfluous to me. I was highlighting this as an example. I also want to be clear. While Mayor Lyles and I will disagree on policy, I'm not calling her out specifically. This is a city council thing. This is a broader involvement thing. There's a police component, and I'm making the case that I'm a different voice, that I will bring a truly new perspective that can shake things up a little bit. As far as nonpartisan voting goes, so how best to hold an election is a philosophical question that will probably last as long as this country. And there's certainly been problems with pure nonpartisan elections in the past, but the difference would be the preference voting. So you could still run as a Democrat. We would not say that on there, but the Democrats could stand outside and hand their little card out. The difference is other Democrats could run, and it forces candidates to stick with their ideas all the way to the end of the election.
Okay. Okay, both of you, and every time I come, I hear a couple of things repeated over and over again. Affordable housing being one, homeless being the other. I'm one to believe that there are a lot of people out there who are homeless by choice. But my question is for those who are homeless because they cannot help it. Have you all ever considered developing some of these vacant buildings or anything and a system in which you can get the homeless people back and forth into those buildings so they will not be on the street?
Thank you for that question. It is one of those that follows us every day on how do we best address this. And there's lots of different ways that people see having humane treatment for people and how they're going to work. But let me explain, and part of this is what we're doing in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, making our city feel safer and be safer. And part of this is about how do we address homelessness. We're very fortunate to have a county commission that works with us. You know, there's ways to structure government. And generally what the city does is infrastructure. And what the county does is to help people and to make sure that people are secure and safe. So this time I want to say I'm really glad that we have a young man who's leading the effort for how do we address homelessness out of Mecklenburg County and out of our city. I don't know how to say Renard. I think that's how I call him, but I'm sure he has some kind of PhD and a bunch of other things on how he's working on it. We have been having a meeting almost monthly, weekly often, to talk about how do we address that. And he is now working on an initiative to determine we have to get people off of the street. I mean, because people always think that people on the street are doing harm. Actually, most of the time, those people on the streets are being harmed. And so we need to figure this out. And if you notice a little bit more around what we're doing on Robert Bearden Park, we now have walking police patrols there. We have now invested in go-karts. I don't think that's the right word for it, but that's what I was for go-karts. But we are going to have that kind of initiative. But I hope that we will be able in the next several weeks, maybe a month, to say to Dr. Renard, say, thank you, what do we do and how do we do it? And I think that those buildings are really important to consider because that takes people in a safe place. Thank you for the question.
So as soon as I saw homelessness this afternoon, tomorrow I got peace in the Middle East on my agenda, so just all the intractable problems real fast. It's a difficult question. If we could solve homelessness, and it has been a long-standing issue in the U.S., then we probably would have solved it. I think that if you want to solve a problem, you have to address the root causes. I mean, we treat symptoms, and we spend more money treating symptoms, and this is a problem everywhere in the country, and probably the world, but I'm more interested in the country, the state, and very much Charlotte. Poverty is a cycle, and there's a whole bunch of factors that come into it. It can create mental health issues where they didn't exist. People, depression, anxiety, that becomes crippling. You can't move forward. It lowers your performance. You lose jobs. People, substance abuse is prevalent amongst the homeless, but I don't think it's the whole, like, they're a bunch of drug addicts. It's people who are self-medicating because they're stuck in this cycle of a mental health collapse and then external circumstances that are just making it that much worse. One of the best ways to start to address homelessness is to make the city prosper. You provide jobs that people can get that can pay a decent wage and then have a house that they can afford to live in. You create the pride of being able to take care of yourself, the returns on work, prosperity. You're starting to produce things, and that's how we move up. And that's when we talk about, and I don't need to get too like existential or silly, but the American dream is the idea that you can move up, and the generation that you bring after you can move up another step. And that opportunity is just not there. I do think that lowering some of these taxes, not going through with some of these, like the transportation tax, that I think is really going to hurt us economically. And I think unleashing development, and not from a bunch of out-of-state developers who are working deals with city council, but letting people buy property and turn it into what's best for them. And once you have housing, then people have a place to live. You start to create jobs. Other jobs come, and the whole system, it becomes a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle.
Okay, we'd like to ask you to stay seated when you give your answers because of the cameras that we have here. So now, next question is from online, and Mary's going to read the question that we have from someone online.
Okay, we have an online question. Given the uncertainty of the federal government, it is essential to continue to fund affordable housing with resources we control. Furthermore, the proposed transit system expansion will put more pressure on communities where affordable housing is vanishing. What is your specific commitment to maintain and increase the $100 million Housing Trust Fund, and would you support a budget without it?
Yes, that's for both of us. Yes, I think it's for both of us. So I'll start off. The very first thing that I'm sorry. Okay, so the very first thing I said is that ever since I've been in the mayor's office, we've always had affordable housing bonds passed. And that's because you guys believe in it and you believe that the work we're doing is the right thing. And so I will continue to support, continued support for bond initiatives that help people live in housing, that help us have the people that we're having off the streets. You know, right now, roof above, which is where most people that are in help and have needs in that.
All right, folks, our time here on Live Impact is about to come to a close. Of course, the big headline tonight, the government shutdown, which is all but certain at midnight. We're going to have much more coming up on the news at 11 here on WCNC Plus. But essentially, as we see it, the Senate adjourning for the night without passing a spending plan. They are set to return at 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. 3 votes are scheduled. 2 are procedural related to the 2 stopgap measures that failed in the Senate tonight already. So this was the House passed one that is the Republican spending plan and the Democratic alternative. There's also set to be a vote, that 3rd vote on a nominee. So we will keep you updated as we see this development transpiring. Keep in mind the last time the government shut down was late 2018 into early 2019, the longest shutdown that happened in U.S. history, lasting more than 30 days. We'll have much more to come here. In the meantime, we'll turn you over to our next hour of programming.